Hey friend, welcome back to the Vision Driven Health Podcast, your go-to show for learning how to create healthy habits that last in partnership with the God who created you. If you're a mom and you just haven't felt yourself since having kids, if you find yourself exhausted, irritable, and hanging by a thread, or if it's been a bit since you raised young kids, but years later you feel like you never really got back to a place of feeling well and feeling like yourself, today's guest has some amazing insight to share. And I do want to give a trigger warning for today's conversation regarding miscarriage. It is mentioned with minimal detail, focused primarily on the health surrounding the event. However, it is a part of our conversation. But I will say I really do believe this conversation offers hope and answers you may not know that you needed to hear to finally feel well again. So without further ado, let's get to it. Do you find yourself struggling to consistently implement healthy habits? Do you lack energy, confidence, and motivation because of stress, overwhelm, and shame for having not gotten it together by now? Friend, there is hope and grace for your health. Hey, I'm Robin Ryan McDonald, host of the Vision Driven Health Podcast. I'm a follower of Jesus, a wife, a mama of two, and a seminarian turned health coach. And I'm so excited that you're here. I found myself in my early 20s captive to cravings and convenience, 20 pounds heavier, super tired, with a face full of acne. I could not figure out how to maintain healthy habits until I discovered the power of aligning my choices with God's vision. 10 years and 2 kids later, by the grace of God, I'm still prioritizing my health and feeling amazing. If you are over quick fixes and are ready to feel good in your own skin, then grab a giant water bottle and let's dive on in. We talk a lot in this conversation about eating well, which can mean a lot of different things to different people. I think sometimes we just want to know what to put on our plate so that we can begin to make those mindful decisions for our eating. To help dispel the uncertainties and overwhelm of what to eat, I created the What to Eat mini course. Through the content of this course and the resources it includes, you'll be able to ditch the confusion and overwhelm and take hold of a simple, enjoyable way of eating that serves your body and enables you to live the life you're called to. You can get this for 15% off using code LISTENER15 at checkout. To learn more and get started on this course, go to visiondrivenhealth.com/whattoeat. Friend, we have Sara Moreira with us. She is an RN and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She helps women reclaim their energy and health after kids by addressing the root cause, amen. With a background in nursing and advanced training in functional lab testing, she guides women to restore their hormones, rebuild mineral balance, and align with God's design for their body. Through her coaching programs, Sara equips women with practical, faith-centered strategies to overcome fatigue, weight loss resistance, and gut symptoms so they can be and feel better than they did before having kids. Honestly, reading that, I'm like, is that possible? So we are excited to have you today, Sara.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
So excited to be here.
Yeah, amen. We were just talking before I hit record, and I get a decent amount of requests to be on the show and whatnot. And I was excited to see, one, that you were a real person reaching out to me, but then two, I love what you're doing. I was just like, oh my gosh, I need this. And I know so many women find themselves in this space, even when, so for myself, I eat well, I try to stay active, like I know the core basics, and yet there's just something that happens to us after we have kids where the things just start to break down and we're like, what the heck? So I would love first, before we get into all the nitty gritty, because this is going to be such a good conversation, but how does your faith in Jesus relate to what you're doing with hormones and health and supporting moms?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple different things I think of when you ask that question. First of all, I mean, I have to give everything to Jesus because I actually came from New Age beliefs,
Oh,
believe it or
interesting.
not.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's where that
Yeah,
comes.
so no, I get it. And so growing up, I really didn't have a faith at all. We just it wasn't something we did or talked about.
Sure.
And funny enough, I married a Christian conservative man. And so I had kind of started actually really learning about that through him and his family. But before that, I was really into New Age practices.
Mm.
So back in, when I was trying to actually start a business, like an astrology business at that time.
Oh,
And so that was the route I was going. I was, gung ho about starting that. And I was a nurse at the time as well. That was kind of like my side like passion thing that I was doing.
sure.
And I came out of that new age in 2020 when I was saved by Jesus. So that honestly really shifted everything for me. And from one day to the next that happened,
Amen.
it was unbelievable. But from one day to the next, I completely shut down everything I was doing, got rid of all my new agey things like the crystals and the books and everything. And I was just done with it. And and I became a follower of Jesus. So at that time, I knew I still wanted to start a business, and that was still something that I really had on my heart to do, but obviously with a different lens. And so, because of my background in health and nursing and my story, I knew that I had to help women with their health. And so that's when I shifted my business and started something completely new.
Hmm.
And now that's the work I do to help moms. And it comes back to whole foods, living the way God designed our bodies rather
Yeah,
than chasing all the trends and all the crazy things that we see on the internet is the main thing.
totally. Nice. It blesses me so much to hear people coming to Jesus in their later years. It's something I'm so grateful. The church that we're at, there's just people giving their lives to Jesus every Sunday. Like it's beautiful. However, a lot of my church background and growing up, it was very rare that you would like see someone come forward or give their life to, Jesus, or even that an altar call was done regularly. And then even just out and about, it was kind of like if you didn't catch somebody in those like early years, I guess it kind of sounds sad, but I guess I didn't have a big faith in the past for someone coming to Jesus as an adult because I'm like, they're set, which is, I mean, there's plenty of testimonies of that. But I don't know why I thought that. But anyways, at this point, I absolutely just see there's a hunger. God is moving. People are coming to Jesus. And I just love hearing that. Even to, it's almost like, especially those that are in New Age and in that arena, they're primed for the picking. They're hungry. They want that spiritual element and they acknowledge that there's something there. Um, I just am so curious. Can you give just a little bit of insight on like how I mean, obviously you married a Christian guy, so there's that, but what was that encounter like with Jesus? I think it's worth talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. So for me, it was actually interesting. So when I did meet my husband, although his family was they were Christian and
Hmm.
believers and everything, he kind of had strayed away from that a bit. As sometimes
Ah,
that happens
sure, yeah.
as a teenager and into we were young when we met. I was 19, he was 21. So we
Babies.
were babies. So we were both in this kind of weird, we didn't really have specific beliefs at that time. We were both kind of very confused, to be
Hmm.
honest.
Hmm.
And so I fell into the new age really because I wanted answers. I
Mm.
wanted to know like what I was supposed to be doing in my life. And I felt like there was more, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't just want to sit around and like, it just sounds so silly, but I fell into the astrology because like, tell me. And I fell
Yeah.
into the going to see a psychic or whatever, maybe because
Hmm.
they can tell me what
Right.
my future holds and they can give me more. They can give me more information.
Yeah.
So it's always like trying to find more information, and more information is you just get in this rabbit hole
Hmm.
where the more you feel like you heal, quote unquote, that's what they
Hmm.
tell you, the more you need to keep going. And it's almost like you
Ah,
can never get out of this cycle. It was the best way I can describe it, I guess. And so it was interesting because there's a kind of a fine line in the health space. I don't know if you've noticed, but like with new agey stuff and health, right? So it's like,
totally.
oh, well, you just need to meditate or you just need to do yoga, for
Yeah.
like the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
And so there is a fine line there. And so there was someone that I was following, and she had a really big business in the spiritual world of, I don't think it was like psychic work, but it was something of that nature.
Yeah.
And so she was big. I mean, her business was making millions. And she started coming on her Instagram lives, I'll never forget, ranting about how she has had these realizations about the new world and how it's false and demonic and all these things. And I'm watching this, just, scrolling on my Instagram stories, but I had been following her for a long time. And I'm like, it was almost like you're like, this is silly and crazy, but you can't look away.
Yeah.
So she did this every day for like 4 or 5 days because she had her realizations and she was now moving to become a Christian and she had been saved. So by watching her in that process over those like 4 or 5 days, that's when it happened to me. And I went from thinking this girl's crazy to like fully believing and knowing that that's the truth. And yeah, like that 4th day or 5th day that she was on the live is when I got rid of all my stuff and told my husband, like, I'm done with all this. And that's really how it happened. And I bought my first Bible at the time. I'll never forget, like, going to Barnes and Nobles and like buying my first one and just started reading it. And it's crazy, but the one thing I realized, because I never read the Bible, I criticized it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, this is silly or this is not real.
Yeah.
I criticized it. But the one interesting thing is that I found more of the answers that I was looking for in the Bible than I ever did from any psychic or any astrologer or any New Age practice, which is to me so interesting.
Amen. I have goosebumps. That's so cool. Praise the Lord. He's so good and gracious, and he's on the move. I love that. That's amazing. Okay, we'll shift gears because
I know it could talk about it all day. Trust me, it's a great topic.
Yes, obviously. But I think it is related too, because, in the same way that in our health, we can go to the world and we can search and look, whether that is in more maybe a New Age arena or just honestly just the culture of the day, the next fad or whatever, we're left empty but needing more. And when we go to God, he's the maker, he's the designer, he's the one who created our bodies. He's got a design that we're supposed to live off of, but then also like he knows you, like he knows uniquely you and how to support you and where you're at. So I'd love to hear how, because as a nurse background, you can tackle a huge variety of different health topics to build a business around, but you've chosen to do supporting moms and their hormones. Why us?
Yeah. So let's see, going back, I had my first baby before I started nursing school. So I'd actually become a mom before becoming a nurse. And my issues really started though in high school. I was a young 15-year-old with severe gut issues. And it was frustrating because none of my friends were dealing with this or experiencing this. And it's just like, what is going on? What is happening? And that's, I guess, at the same time, like where I was like, I need answers. Like, this is not normal with the constant bloating. And I had acid reflux really bad at that age. And you think like, only when you're older you get something like that. I didn't know. And so I had gone to many conventional doctors at the time. My grandmother was also a nurse, so she was taking me, to kind of get testing. I'm like, let's just figure out what this is. And I was naive and like, okay, they're going to tell me what's wrong. And so after, a bunch of testing with GI specialists and things like that, it came down to, well, we don't really know what's going on, but here is a PPI, like a something for the acid to reduce the acid, right? So here's this medication that you can just take and nothing else looks wrong. So basically, congratulations that nothing's wrong. But I'm there even at 16 thinking something is definitely wrong. This is not normal. And I don't want to have to live like this, right? So upon doing further research, even realizing that medication that they prescribed, it tells you don't take longer than 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm like, why did they not even tell me that? That's so crazy. So I started doing my research on my own at that point, just like what could be causing this. And that's kind of when I went down the whole rabbit hole of like, oh, let me kind of clean up what I'm eating. Maybe it's the processed foods, because I don't know how you grew up, but I grew up eating cereal and pancakes, and any snack that I could potentially have wanted from the grocery store was always stocked in my house.
Yes.
It's just the way, I guess, of the 90s and like early 2000s. Yeah,
100%.
So, exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe like I had hope that if I just clean up my diet, like things will get better. And they did to a point. Like I know gluten that's when I learned that gluten was a big trigger for me. And
Mhm.
so kind of removing that really did help. And some other things that I had changed up really did help, but not fully. And
Mhm.
then so I became a nurse and I'm thinking, okay, now I can help people. Maybe I can help myself, right?
Yeah.
And so I started working as a nurse in 2016 and I started in cardiac health. And
Mhm.
so with older adults, and I would see the same people coming in and out all the time, in and out. It's like, why are we not able to fully like help these people? We're able to save them from an emergency event like a heart attack, but we send them home and they're coming back with congestive heart failure, or they're coming back with whatever their chronic
Right.
condition is, and it's like they're just not getting better.
Yeah.
And so I started to like really dive into root cause and like what actually could be, causing these things. And that's kind
Yeah.
of where I became interested in that. And then, I had more kids. I have 4 now. So over the years, I had more kids, and my gut issues got never really fully got better. But then the hormone issues started happening. So
Mm.
then, I had my third baby and I had gestational diabetes with her and the fatigue. And I remember literally thinking, like, she's such a good baby compared to my first two. Like, she
Mhm.
slept all night pretty much from
Mhm.
the beginning. She was so sweet, never cried. But I was like, this is still so exhausting. And I
Mm.
know it's not her because she's such a great baby. Like,
Yeah.
but I shouldn't, why am I
Yeah.
this depleted feeling?
Yeah.
And that's when I really like started learning about the hormone issue. And so that's really, and then I guess I should say that too, that I had transitioned from the cardiac world into labor and delivery at a certain point.
Mhm.
And so I saw it firsthand too. I saw moms coming in and, they were coming in with gestational diabetes and high blood pressure and all these things. And it was becoming so frequent. And that is like, this is crazy that this many people are dealing with these things. And
Mhm.
so even in postpartum, like we would send these moms home and, they're exhausted before they even get home. Like they're
Right.
already in
Right.
that depleted state. And when I kind of learned about root cause and I became an FDN, I did all of that and I kind of changed some things. And then I had my last baby. And the difference that
Mm.
I felt after putting these things that I teach into practice with that baby, I mean, I can't even tell you it was the amount of how different it was and how
Yeah.
different I felt from my first 3 kids to my fourth when I actually did this. So that's really why I'm here, to help moms, because I know it's possible and I see it all the time, the shift that can happen. Yes, you're going to be tired. Okay. You have a newborn. I'm not saying that you're going to like come out of pregnancy and be like ready to go. That's not what I'm saying. And that's not realistic, but it's just the amount of fatigue that
Right.
is, that complete exhaustion where you feel like you can't go on is what we really want to change.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I love that you've got that firsthand experience and that contrast between feeling, I mean, I don't want you feeling terrible, but at least you have like that contrast to know and say, okay, wow, like this was the difference. And these things that I've learned, like, I can actually help people not to feel that way because, yeah, I mean, I feel like in my circle of friends and community, it's baby palooza and people like it's hard, like a lot of them are feeling really tired and struggling and there's an element of that, and I think that's actually a good segue to one of the questions I want to ask you, because I think even too there's like a mom culture of like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted, like I like iced coffee and just survive. And I think it's important to be able to identify what's normal and what's like actually how it's supposed to be. Like it's like, yeah, you're gonna feel a little tired, like you're waking up every few hours if with
Yeah.
like a newborn. But it's like once we're kind of out of that phase, if we're still feeling like we're just dragging our feet. So I would just love to know from your experience, what would you say are the biggest struggles you see mom face? And I guess I should clarify, I assume like within the first 5 years, but do you have like a time frame that you kind of like primarily work with or look at to identify these different struggles?
Yeah, I mean, you're right on that. Like I would say the first 5 or so years after having kids is kind of the primary like time. But if
Mhm.
if we don't address those things, they don't get better.
Sure.
And then we're moving into perimenopause and it just gets worse. So it really is a cycle continuing on, like no matter how old your kids are.
Yeah. So then within that, time frame after having kids, and I mean, for you, you've had 4, we've had 2, we still want more. And there's kind of that also of like you're just pregnant nursing or like trying to like get your body back in a like reasonable state for however many years. So what are the main to come back to this, what are the main things you see women struggle with, those moms that you're like, okay, these are the problems that you address?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is fatigue. And honestly, this is one of those things, like you said, mom life, where like we just kind of expect to be drained
Hmm.
for like a certain amount of time. But the thing that happens is if it's not addressed and the things that we do, it's like you think, okay, well, when my baby sleeps better, then it'll be fine.
Right.
I'll be better because I'll be sleeping through the night, but that doesn't happen.
Right.
And then your kids are now sleeping better, but you're not. And you're
Yeah.
like, wait, what the heck is happening? Like, I'm
Yeah.
still feeling drained. So, yeah, it really is that feeling of like not only waking up exhausted, but feeling like you need caffeine constantly
Hmm.
throughout the
Hmm.
day to
Hmm.
just make it through. Not
Hmm.
even to just like, have a fun day of adventures. Like, no, you're just trying to make it through your day at home, like with your newborn, if it is that, or if your kids are a little older, even getting them to school, getting homework done. Like for me, it was the evening time was just like
Yeah.
such a struggle, right? Because you're
Yeah.
like, you power through the day with caffeine, but then it's like 5 p.m. You're like, it's too late for a coffee, but
Yeah.
you know you have bedtime, and kids
You're
are
still,
coming home from school
yeah.
and like reading and baths and all that. Like, so that was my biggest struggle. And the afternoon crashes too. Like I remember for
Hmm.
a long time, I couldn't survive without a nap. That's not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you had a bad night where, okay, maybe it was an abnormal night where like you were up constantly all night for whatever reason with one of your kids. It's not normal to need a nap daily,
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
It's also not normal to need caffeine every single day.
Right.
Aside from that, maybe one morning coffee that you have, right?
Yeah.
And so these are some of the things. I know another thing that a lot of my clients deal with too is like horrible periods after
Mm,
they get that cycle back, right?
right.
And so that's something too to think about. Worse PMS than they had ever had, where that week or two before is just like unbearable in terms of irritability and snapping at people and just
Hmm.
not having the patience with your kids that you
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
you should have. And then yeah, those are the main things. And then the weight loss resistance is, I do bring that up. I understand that it's not something we need to like bounce back from kids and like lose all the weight,
Totally.
but it is something that lasts, even like years out.
Right. Right. No, and I think all those things you mentioned, one, I've experienced a lot of those things myself. I've in conversation with other moms, and like I mentioned at the start of our conversation, it can happen to those of us that are implementing healthy habits even. And I think I'll share, I'll be vulnerable. I'll share my experience because I think I'm sure there's a spectrum of people that are listening. It might be, those like me who are implementing the healthy habits and like, what the heck, why is this still like this? And then some that maybe just don't have as much education on what those habits and lifestyle things look like. But for me, I have two boys. My youngest is 3 now. And I haven't shared this on the air before, but I did end up having a miscarriage earlier this year, which I was completely off my radar. I had the two easiest pregnancies, smoothest at-home birth deliveries, like just the healthiest guys. I've always been super healthy. And so I didn't even think that, as maybe as naive as this is to think that it could happen to me because of how healthy I was. But it did. And so then I'm like, oh gosh, like how, why, etc. And I understand it's actually becoming more and more common. It's extremely common. But I was like, well, let me get my hormones tested because like it shouldn't just happen. I don't think it should. I think a lot of the medical world says like it just happens, but I don't think it's supposed to just happen, right? And so I was like, let me at least, rule out the things that we can. And so I got my hormones tested, and turns out my progesterone was on the upper side of normal, and my estrogen, oh, excuse me, my progesterone was on the lower side of normal, and my estrogen was on the upper side of normal, right? So, which is like a recipe for miscarriage. And so then I'm like, oh, how, why? Like I eat super clean, like I try to get enough sleep, like I'm active. We have filtered water, like we have grounding sheets. Like I'm like, how, like how and why, and if they just, it just happens. And I'm just like, and I still actually don't really fully know how it did. But what I can tell you is that like you just mentioned, those periods, had those kind of periods after my second. I don't remember they were heavier, a lot more irritability, just really bad ones. They just weren't pleasant. And not that it necessarily always are, but actually when you are healthy and well, it's really not that bad. And so, but I didn't identify that as an issue. I was having a lot of spotting leading up to my period too. I learned that that is indicative of low progesterone even before we conceived, but I just was like, yeah, but I think I'm healthy. I didn't really like take hold of that. And so, and that because I remembered that before we conceived, that's why I thought to test my hormones. I was like, well, that it could be the low progesterone. The other thing I'll say that I think actually was my issue was stress. And I just chatted with a gal, I'm not sure where your episode will come with hers, but who was talking about her stress journey where she didn't know she was stressed. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. Like, I didn't realize I was stressed out of my mind. Like, sure, like I'd get a little more triggered, a little more upset. Like there'd be those more like flustery, stressy moments. But what I didn't realize is I was at a constant elevated state of stress, and those were the peaks. Like there was no valley. And so I really think that is what brought my hormones out of whack. And I think there's so many women where we're not pausing, stopping, and getting curious enough to identify those kinds of things. And that was me, like as a health coach, like just like, no, 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 I'm healthy, I'm good. No, 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 I'm healthy, I'm good. Press on, press on, press on. And my body was like, girl, you are not. So anyways, I share that because I want people to hear one, honestly, where I'm at, and I'm on the other side of healing all of those things. And for your work. So then I shared, kind of my insights and lack of insights on what caused it. I would love to hear from you. What are the things that are causing and contributing to these health struggles as moms, and how our bodies just seem like foreign objects after we have babies?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that because, and I'm so sorry that that happened. You're right, it is very common. And I think it's worth talking about because
Yeah.
your story can really, like, you really explain that all really well. And so many people are dealing with that same
Right.
cycle.
Right.
And while because, we don't want to blame ourselves for like, oh, I could have avoided this. But yes, we do want to get curious and say, okay, well, like, how can I actually make sure that I am in a really good state of health, right? To, have future pregnancies or if that's what you want or whatever it is. And so really I would say, and I kind of want to preface, like when it comes to balancing hormones, there can be a misconception with that word, right? We think,
Sure.
oh, we have to like balance things so that like we don't have hormone fluctuations. No, we
Yeah.
are meant to have hormone fluctuations as women, unlike men who have kind of the same thing every day. We are meant to, throughout the month and the seasons and everything, to have fluctuations in hormones. And so what we really want to try to do is help those hormones be in the range that they're supposed to be
Right.
at any given time of the month. And so that's why a big thing that we do is work with your cycle to help you, okay, like maybe this week we are going to do more intense things or be more active or whatever it is. And then this time of the month we aren't, and we're going to slow down. And so just kind of realizing that can help. But what you said about the cortisol actually is spot on because I
Wait,
believe,
cortisol or the progesterone?
well, the progesterone, yes, it becomes low, but why
Oh,
does
sorry,
it become low?
cortisol saying stress. Sorry.
Yeah,
Filling
like
in the
the
gap for
stress
people.
piece.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. So your progesterone was showing low, your estrogen was showing high, and so that really why at the core of that is really due to cortisol and insulin,
Yeah,
blood
yeah, yeah.
sugar, and I don't know how many times like people I've talked to moms and they say, well, no, like my blood sugar is normal. I've had it checked. It's normal. It's likely not because first of all, the doctors aren't testing it the way that they should because
Right.
you could have dysfunction for 20 years before you show up on labs that your blood sugar is out of range. But cortisol and insulin are very closely tied, as you know. So if cortisol is high, insulin's going to go high. When insulin's high, and cortisol, that stress hormone, progesterone's down because your body's like, I need to fight for whatever stressors like right in front of me. Fertility, progesterone, those types of hormones, like they're not important right now because I'm like kind of fighting for my life in a way.
Right.
Right? Like the way that we were created, that's the mechanism. And it's not an accident. It's not something that's wrong with us. It's just meant to protect us. But our world tends to be a lot more stressful chronically in the environment that we live, especially as moms, like you had mentioned, like you're like, you don't even sometimes see the need to slow down. Because you're just like, I have to do all these things. I have 2 kids and I have to they have to be healthy and I have to take care of myself and them and my husband and the whole family. And it just becomes, we're trying to do everything.
Right.
And so that is definitely a huge root cause and why we at like Functional Mom, we work so heavily with blood sugar because it really does come down to that. Like, you know, you could have some practitioner tell you, oh, your progesterone's low, just take some. Oh, your estrogen's high. Here, take this supplement to lower it. But that's not really fixing why those hormones are out of whack in the first place. And so really it's about looking deeper at the blood sugar piece and the stress piece, because otherwise things are just going to be out of whack. And there are reasons why after kids, your blood sugar is so unstable, if that makes sense.
That's all super helpful. And I think, and it is unfortunate because you go to a practitioner and they're trained the way they're trained. I think they're well-meaning. I don't think that anybody's, trying to do things the wrong way or whatever. But I love that you have the functional training because that is the whole point, is like getting to the root cause. And that requires a broader effort with a client. You can't just do these 15-minute, okay, what'd you say? Okay, cool. Yeah, well, we're going to, it can't be that basic. It can't be that siloed even. And so, I think that makes a ton of sense. So then I'm curious because you talk about minerals and metabolism, and I know you mentioned weight loss, which we don't have to spend a ton of time on, but when it comes to kind of identifying what needles we could move, what levers we can adjust in our life, what does that look like from the standpoint with minerals, metabolism, even like you just mentioned, stress and blood sugar? Yeah.
So one thing, really we want to be taking care of this up front. Obviously we know what we know at any given time, and we learn things as we experience them, right? I didn't know all this with my first 2 pregnancies, or I would have done this as anyone probably would have. And so one thing that happens in pregnancy is that we're giving up so much of our mineral stores to our baby.
Right.
We are literally creating a life, and that never ceases to amaze me. The amount of years that I saw babies being delivered at work, I still would cry like almost every time, because it's so unbelievable that we can do that.
Yeah.
And so, for example, like we have a higher need for things like zinc and iodine and selenium and magnesium. And so, for example, like magnesium is needed for so many things, over like 300 enzymatic, processes that happen in the body require magnesium. And one of the big things that magnesium does is it helps with energy production. And so, we're really depleted in that because it's pulled heavily in pregnancy. Magnesium is also critical for blood sugar stability. So that's one of the reasons. And same thing with potassium and selenium and all these minerals that we need to get from our food and water. They're being pulled. And so if we're not restoring those in pregnancy, we're already low. We're already starting out depleted after we have our baby. And then add on how long you're breastfeeding for. That is also, you're giving a lot of your minerals to the baby. You're trying to build up their immune function and give them their own thyroid support. And like they need that too. So that's why it is really important to increase your nutrient need as you're pregnant and still as you're breastfeeding. A lot of women want to maybe it's unintentional, cut back on calories after the baby at a certain point, right? Like, because we want to lose weight, or we just don't have time. Like, to be honest, like so many moms I talk to, she's like, I just don't have time to like feed myself. I have to feed the kids. I have to do this. I have to do so many things. But when we're doing that, like when we're not putting ourselves first, they say put your mask on before you put your kids' masks on. We really have to take that seriously, because if we're not getting the nutrients that we need, then it's going to lead to all the things that we talked about: irritability with your kids, less patience. When you don't have the proper mineral balance, you literally can't handle stress the same way that you could if you didn't, because we can't get rid of stress in our life. Like we just live in that type of world. So we have to build up our resilience, and that means building up our minerals. And so one of the things I would say is just like be intentional about your eating, and instead of kind of picking around or not eating breakfast till noon, or I'll just eat my leftover what my kids have, instead of making myself a full meal and trying to eat that. And so that's the one thing I would say is super important. Get back in the habit of eating a good breakfast. Whether you work and you have to rush out the door or not, we have to, figure it out. I got to the point when I was working as a nurse still, I would leave the house at like 6:15, and I would eat at 6 o'clock right before I left. And I had to get used to that because obviously if you're skipping
Yeah.
breakfast all the time, you're just like not hungry in the morning. It was a process to get there, but it is crucial
Hmm.
to really feed yourself well. And sometimes, and I will say, like, depending on the how imbalanced your minerals are. So we run a hair mineral test. And one of the patterns
Mm.
that we see pretty often with moms is it's called four lows. So your four main minerals, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium, are all very low, very depleted. That takes time to get out of, and that does often, in my experience, require specific supplementation to help with that.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like it's almost like because we weren't keeping up with it this whole time, we're so low that we just really need that extra help and support. And you know, that's the main thing is just like making sure that we're putting minerals first and we're getting those in our diet and we're not skipping on meals.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, I will say is when blood sugar is erratic, because like I said, with all these minerals being low, that does not support blood sugar. When we have blood sugar ups and downs, that really affects the pH like in our gut, and that's when we can now our immune system's lowered and we let in pathogens. So I will say, like
Mm.
a lot of times when moms think, "Oh, I have a gut issue. I don't have a hormone issue," or they have both, the gut issue often stems from the low blood sugar and the environment in the first place, from the stress
Sure.
and the blood sugar
Yeah.
erratic blood sugar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense. And on the point of supplementation, I'm a big fan of supplementing, um, because unfortunately our food is not as quality as it should be. Even if you buy organic, like you still don't know how long it's from when it was picked to when it's at the grocery store. Like, and as soon as any, vegetable or fruit is picked, it immediately starts losing nutrients, which is so sad and kind of discouraging because and I've dabbled with the garden and I was like, Lord knows, like if I had to live off of what I grow, like we would die. So like it's like, I'll have a few cucumbers that I make pickles out of, and we have a few like choice tomatoes for a salad. But like
Exactly.
there's not like I've not been successful in that. But because of that, and we don't have the same quality food, it's tough to hit those markers unless you are supplementing. And supplementation is like a whole nother topic because you want to make sure that you're getting quality supplementation, that it's bioavailable, and that it's like a good formula, et cetera. And I mean, I have brands I like. I'm sure you do too. I don't know, we can put some recommendations in the show notes if we
Yeah.
want to. But yeah, I'm definitely for that. And I also 100% agree. We have to do the full meals. When I would work with clients from a just like a weight loss nutrition standpoint, um, I think it's something about women where, and it's that, I guess, societal thing that we've been taught, like eat less, move more, and that's how you lose weight. And then what I would see, I'd have to put a lot of clients on a reverse diet because they've trained their bodies to live off of like 700 to 900 calories a day, and you can't reduce that like and survive. And so we would
Correct.
have to obviously shift the content of what they're eating, but then build them back up to 15, 1700 calories a day. But then they'd be so shocked and they're like, I'm eating double what I ate before and I'm losing weight. And I'm like, yes, because you are nourished. And like,
Exactly.
it's just one of those things where, yeah. And I want to say too to the moms, because like even me with the season I'm in, I'm hearing you talk and it's just like, it's frustrating. It's just like, what the heck? Like, you put in, your body puts all this effort into creating a baby and you're taking care of it. And it's like, why do I have to put in so much work to take care of myself? Like, it's like annoying. It's like, why can't I just be and do? And I guess my just encouragement for those listening is like, it is a season. And to your point, Sarah, like, but if we don't give ourselves that space to address our health and our bodies, like the annoying and unfortunate thing is it doesn't get better. It's not going to go away. And I think, bringing in people to support you, like having a conversation with your spouse of just like, look, like I need help to be able to have the time to make myself meals, or like, hey, can you like whatever that looks like partner with your spouse. And like even like yesterday, I'm still sorting through whatever the heck, all the stressors and things that have brought me to where I am. But even yesterday, I told my husband, I was like, I'm in a stressy day. I don't know what's off. And I was like, but like, I'm just letting you know right now, like I need you like extra tonight because we aren't running on the normal like
Right.
way of being and stuff. And he just was like, okay, I love you. And I just think that communication helps and like to be able to, get that space and wind down. And honestly, like even just talking to him in that like conversation, like I like immediately felt less stressed and like I still did everything. Like he didn't have to step in because it was acknowledged. And I was like, oh, I'm actually like, it's literally just getting out of that stress state that makes like, just that makes such a huge difference. And then all the other things that go with it. So I guess just to the other moms, I'm like, look, same. It is annoying. It is frustrating. And Sarah helps you figure it out. So Sarah, I love what you're doing. I think this is amazing. If someone were to work with you, what would that look like? Because you've mentioned, like, obviously you've got a nursing background. You've mentioned, doing functional diagnostics and stuff. So what does that process look like if someone wants to connect with you and have you work with them?
Absolutely. So we will meet on a initial call and go through everything. We really want to sit and like go through everything about you and what you're struggling with, what your lifestyle looks like, because everybody's coming from a different place. So this is super individualized. This isn't like a cookie cutter, here, do these things and you're going to feel better. It's really looking at everybody differently. Because like you said, like some people are on 700 calories a day. We need to reverse diet you. Others maybe are having trouble with overeating and maybe we need to work a little bit differently. So we kind of first off sit and listen. I sit and listen to my clients because when we go to the doctor, we all know that we don't have that.
Right.
And like I said, this isn't to take the place of medical professional. This is to support that. And this is a whole different thing. This is investing in yourself so that you can be the mom that is patient with your kids and that feels good and feels like they have energy, right? And so that's the first step. We always run at least 2 functional labs on all my clients. So we do the hair tissue test first, which is going to check for minerals in the tissues. And we're going to do the GI map because like I said, with all the hormone issues, likely there's some dysfunction going on in the gut, which can worsen that too. And so they're very, very related. So those are the 2 standard tests that I run on everybody. And then we formulate customized plans with lifestyle changes, diet, movement, sleep, and specific supplementation based on what you need, not just kind of throwing a million supplements at you. We're very strategic with the supplements that we do choose. Some people, depending on their gut test, like for example, they need to go through a parasite elimination protocol, or others don't, and others have to focus more so on the mineral. So it really just depends on what we see on the test. And then we do go through a specific framework, right, to kind of start implementing. And I will say, like, people, my clients are busy moms, okay? So we don't have time for you tell me to do these 20 things in my day, okay? So it's not that. It's really just making these small adjustments and little shifts in your day and in your environment to help support your metabolism so that you can easily lose weight if that's your goal, or so that you can have consistent energy through the day, not constantly needing to nap or reach for the coffee. That's the main thing. And then like once we get through that basic, like usually it's 4 to 6 months. If you choose, like then we could run like hormone testing and things like that. But hormones are never at the root. Never, really. Maybe in like menopause when that's like the shift that's happening, but still, that's never at the root. So even though we're hormone focused, we're looking at the gut, we're looking at minerals, because those are the things that's actually going to affect downstream the hormones.
Love it. That's so good. So then someone's like, okay, that sounds pretty good. I want to do that. Where do they go to sign up and work with you?
Yeah, so I will send you a link if someone wants to sign up for a free call. I do a like free 30-minute consultation call just to see if this is the right thing for you, like what we could do together. My website is functionalmom.com, and my Instagram, I've been on there, is functional_mom. And then I have a podcast, which is Hormone Health for Moms as well, which I love to have, talk about the root cause of hormone issues and all the things. And we have some guests on. It's really fun. So those are kind of the places I am at primarily.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. We'll make sure that everybody can have access to what you're up to, what you're doing, because I think this is so good. And I think, honestly, it provides a lot of hope, because it can feel like we're at war with our bodies. We can feel betrayed by our bodies. Honestly, I had to deal with a lot of that with my situation because of how intentional I am, where it's just like, what the heck? And it's hard, and it's difficult to find a place to get support where we feel like we're getting to that root and we're really actually understanding what's going on, because that just doesn't really exist well in any kind of normal system. So I think what you're doing is amazing, Sarah. I'm so glad that we got to connect. We got to have this conversation. I'm sure it is going to bless those who listen. And yeah, I hope people take advantage of what you're doing. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Robin. This was so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Vision Driven Health podcast today. I hope this episode inspired you, supported you, and blessed you in some way. If it did, it would mean the world if you would leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast and share this episode on your social media. The more reviews and shares this gets, the more people can be blessed and encouraged in creating a Jesus-centered, sustainable, healthy lifestyle. If you want to hang with me and other Jesus-loving ladies who are creating healthy habits that last, be sure to join my free Facebook group, the Made Well Mastermind. Use the link in the show notes to join. Be blessed with hope, joy, and health. I'll see you next week.